In this video, I will explain, using an example, how we use the summation notation, and connected to that is, of course, the issue of using indices. So here we have a variable a, and it has two indices, I and j. So it's now important to understand what this I and j represents, what it stands for. So what we're going to say is let Aij be the flow of migrants, or the flow of immigrants. I should possibly say immigrants, but I write migrants here. So A represents the flow of immigrants from country I to country J. So the important thing to understand here is that the I and j indicates two aspects of that variable immigration. The I tells us from where they are coming, and the j to where the migrants are going. So to understand this may sound quite abstract, so let's create a little table. And of course you all know tables, you've all seen Excel. Excel is nothing else but a table. And here we have a particular way how you could have, what type of data you could have in such a table. So we have to differentiate between where immigrants are coming from and where they're going to. So let's say we're only looking at 4 countries, the UK, Germany, Sweden and France, all European Union countries. And we want to understand the migration flows between these 4 countries. So we also need to look at the destination countries, the same countries, UK, Germany, Sweden, and France. So here's a table, and let me make that clearer by adding these lines. So this is now starting to look like an Excel table, right? And before we proceed, we'll have to indicate the role of the indices here. So the I index indicates the from countries, and here it goes from 1 to 4 because we have 4 countries, and the J index indices the destination countries, again from 1 to 4. So now we can think of all these values: A11, A12, A13, A14, and then in the second row A21, and so forth. And what we now see, we know, given the particular example, we know that all these diagonal values which indicate how many people move from the UK to UK, well, it's going to be 0 if we think of immigrants. Okay, so 0 immigrants from UK to UK, 0 from Germany to Germany. That's, in this particular case, just a definitional assumption made. And that's the one which makes sense. So now we could ask a question. What is the meaning of the following sum? Okay, so here we're having a summation sign. So here's our summation sign, a big sigma, and we are summing some values of A, immigration flows. And we have our 2 indices, I, j. And the sum goes from j equals 1 to 4. So the I is constant and only the j is changing, and that changes from 1 to 4. Let us use an example here. So we now somehow, the I isn't changing. That means we need to fix it at a particular value. So let's say we are thinking of the sum for j equals 1 to 4 of A, and now we're fixing the I, and let's fix it at 2. That means we're thinking of Germany. Okay, 2 here represents Germany in this particular example. So what we're thinking, well, thinking only of values where that I index is equal to 2. So in other words, we're thinking of this row in our table, that second row. That's the only data we're concerned with now. And then we're adding up all the A2s, A21, A22, A23, and A24. That's what this summation is. It's adding up all of these A to J values. And therefore the meaning is fairly obvious, that we've fixed I equals 2. That means only immigration from Germany. So we're looking at the sum of immigrants, or the sum of migrants leaving Germany to any other country in our list. Okay, so the migrants leaving from Germany to UK, from Germany to Sweden, and from Germany to France. And the sum of those, this is represented by this sum we have here. Let's look at a second example here, a similar type of sum. We're looking at the sum of A, I, J, but now we're summing over the I index. So we're summing from I equals 1 to 4. And you see that J, the red index, doesn't appear in the summation, so that will stay constant. So again, to put a particular meaning to this, we sort of have to fix the J. So let's say we're fixing it at a value of 3. So we are asking for the sum where the index I goes from 1 to 4, and we're summing up AI, and now for the J index we're going to fix is going to be 3. So the values 3, of course, representing Sweden. So we are now thinking about immigration into Sweden. And the values we are now adding up is all of these values in that third column. Let me just choose a different color here. That's green. Let's choose green. So we are just summing up all of these 4 values, one of which is 0 because it represents immigration from Sweden to Sweden, which we defined as 0. So the meaning of this is the sum of all the migrants coming to Sweden from the other 3 countries, or formally from all 4 countries, but we set migration from Sweden to be equal to 0. So these were simple sums. Let's look at a double sum. We are now asking the question we're now asking what's the meaning of this following thing. A double sum means we're having 2 summation signs. Again, we're only summing A's, so values in our table. We have these 2 indices, I and J. And let's say you're being asked to calculate the sum where the I index goes from 1 to 2 and the J index, and that will now go to the second summation sign, goes from 3 to 4. So what's the meaning? Let's firstly try and identify what values in the table we are now interested in. So we are interested in rows 1 and 2. Let me just highlight where they are. So rows 1 and 2 are here, and columns 3 and 4. So columns 3 and 4 are, of course, these last 2 columns back here. Okay, and what we're interested in is basically, here in this case, the intersection of these 2 sets of rows and columns, these 4 values which are in rows 1 and 2 and columns 3 and 4. So each value has to meet this. So basically what this double sum does is it adds up the following 4 values: A13 plus A14 plus A23 plus A24. So these are the 4 values being added up. So what's the meaning of this? This is the sum of people who move from either the UK or Germany. So that's the from countries, the 2 from countries you identified. So the sum of people, or the sum of people migrating from the UK or Germany to Sweden or France. So it's a particular subset of migration, and it's the summation sign which sort of points out which particular type. Now, this summation notation is extremely important, especially when you're dealing with big data sets and big spreadsheets. Then we're representing the data contained in this with this summation notation. And of course, it's going to be in econometrics and statistics type subjects where you're dealing with this. So it's really important for that.